Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. And if you haven't noticed lately, all of the world religions are coming together now. And there's one figure at the center of it all. The Vatican has been hosting World Youth Day conferences all around the world since 1985. It's really interesting if you look at the symbol at the bottom left-hand corner for the World Youth Day in Cologne 2005. There's a lot going on here. First off, you have the crescent moon with the star next to the Christian cross. We also have two pyramids with the sun symbol atop. And that sun symbol also acts as a falling star. It's also interesting to note that the Vatican created a special coin to commemorate the World Youth Day of 2005. And on that coin, we also have the falling star. And in this case, the fallen star happens to be an 8-pointed star. I've covered the 8-pointed star in other videos throughout the years. This goes back to Mother Goddess worship, many of the ancient religions. I see it as a symbol of the beast system, and we see the 8-pointed star in practically everything we watch, movies, TV shows, and commercials. It's absolutely everywhere. So we have a symbol within a symbol. We actually have a symbol for Satan or Lucifer, the falling star, and also a prime symbol for the beast system that he's created. Every 2 or 3 years, Catholics from all over the world converge for one of these giant conferences. And during these conferences, the Pope is constantly pushing his agenda. That agenda, of course, includes moving humanity towards a one-world religion. Just a few years ago, Pope Francis told hundreds of thousands of young people gathered for World Youth Day that they need to, quote, believe in a new humanity, and that they should refuse to see borders as barriers. By itself, that statement is not that dramatic, but when you put it into the context of everything else Pope Francis has done and said over the past few years, a very clear pattern begins to emerge. Even when looking at the official logo for the World Youth Day USA, we find some interesting symbolism. If you look at the 3 stars in the top left corner, you'll see that the 2 sitting underneath the top star are a little bit different. They have their points downwards. And as you know with symbolism, when we have the star with the point upside down, we're dealing with a pentagram. And we take all this in context, of course. But when dealing with occult practitioners, this is the way they work. Right next to the 2 pentagrams, we see a bent cross. The formation of this one-world religion has been taking place now for several years. But just in the last few years, we're seeing some really big moves being made. In May 2016, Pope Francis welcomed one of the top Sunni clerics in the world to the Vatican, and he reportedly told the cleric that our meeting is the message. And mainstream news outlets all over the planet, of course, understood what was being communicated. For example, the Daily Mail article about this meeting was entitled "Pope Embraces Grand Imam at Historic Vatican Meeting in a Bid to Bring the Catholic and Muslim Churches Together." This story right here is a huge push towards that one-world religion, and it happened just a few months ago. The agreement supports a one-world fraternity of religion with the goal to bring about world peace and government for all humanity. It's an ecumenical document of the highest order, with many describing it as a historical breakthrough. It's interesting they mention a government for all humanity. It reminds me of the Georgia Guidestones, or the 10 Commandments for the beast system. They couldn't have made it more obvious what the agenda is when they released a video back in January of 2016. Check this out. He was very busy during the year of 2015. In November 2015, he declared that fundamentalism, even Christian fundamentalism, is a, quote, sickness, during remarks in which he stressed the similarity of all major religions. In September of 2015, he traveled to New York City to deliver a speech that kicked off a conference during which the United Nations unveiled a, quote, new universal agenda, unquote, for humanity. In July of 2015, on a trip to Ecuador, Pope Francis spoke of the need for a, quote, new economic and ecological world order, unquote, in which the wealth of the planet is, quote, shared by everyone. In June of 2015, he called for a, quote, new global political authority, unquote, that would have the resources necessary, quote, to deal with the world's economic problems and injustices, unquote, or a world court system. In June of 2014, for the first time in the history of Catholicism, Pope Francis authorized Islamic prayers and readings from the Quran at the Vatican. In ancient times, this would have been considered blasphemy, but today nobody really even notices when something like this happens. A few years ago, we started to see the formation of what they're calling Chrislam. Chrislam founder Rick Warren partnering with mosques to teach Muslims that God of the Bible and Allah are the same. Several years ago, American pastor Rick Warren was one of the chief figures in creating a movement that is now being called Chrislam.
I come to you today with the spirit of love and the spirit of friendship, the spirit of deep respect. I love my dear Muslim friends, my next door neighbor, and so many that are friends, and I love you. Now, dear friends, as globalization draws us closer and closer together, one of the most pressing questions we have to ask ourselves is how do we deal with our deepest differences? It is a fundamental question we have to wrestle with. How do we live together in peace and harmony? And not only that, how can we actually work together, maintaining our separate traditions, maintaining our convictions without compromise, but working together for the greater good of everybody in the world.
The symbol on the left is actually the symbol for Chrislam, and as you can see, it's the crescent moon and the Christian cross. Before we continue to explore the agenda, I wanted to point out a few more things. I've noticed there have been a lot of unfortunate incidents surrounding Pope Francis, and also some strange events as well. Here's one right here. 3 of Pope Francis's family members die in Argentina car crash. Here's another example. Mysterious death of Pope Francis's personal aide alarms Vatican. She was also 7 months pregnant at the time, and as far as I know, they still haven't released the actual details on her death. Here's one from September 1st, 2019, Pope rescued by firefighters after getting stuck in elevator. The Pope was actually in the Pope-mobile at the time. He lost his footing and he bumped his face against the protective glass, darkening his left eye. Pope Benedict is the Pope that preceded Pope Francis. He announced his resignation back in 2013. Right around that time, there were 2 separate bolts of lightning that struck St. Peter's Basilica. Here's another interesting event that took place. Pope Francis's peace doves were both attacked, as tens of thousands of people watched in St. Peter's Square a seagull and a large black crow swept down on the doves right after they were set free from an open window of the palace. Here's some other examples of how the religions and even denominations are starting to come together as one. U.S. Lutherans approve historic agreement with Catholic Church. Here's another example. Muslims go to Catholic Mass across France to show solidarity. And here's an interesting example from way back in 2011. It just goes to show you how long ago these seeds have been planted, and it's fascinating to see how far we've come since then. Another step closer to a one-world religion, 50 U.S. churches to read from the Quran on Sunday. That was from 2011. Several years later, we would actually see the formation of Chrislam. Here is a very interesting piece to this puzzle. Every 3 years, a group meets called the Congress of World Religions, and this story here is from back in 2009. Kazakhstan was the unlikely host of a conference uniting the world's faiths. And there's a lot of interesting things about Kazakhstan. Astana is the capital of Kazakhstan, and it's a futuristic city of symbols with links to Many years ago, there was an organization created in Kazakhstan called the Congress of World Religions. Since then, it's changed into the Congress of the Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. Every 3 years, world religious figures from all around the world meet up in Astana, Kazakhstan. Their first meeting always takes place within a circle inside of a giant glowing pyramid called the Palace of Peace. And then they pray around the Baitarek monument. It's a statue symbolizing Samruk, the magic bird who lays a golden egg, or the sun symbolism. Ultimately, these people are sun worshippers, or Lucifer. Within this egg, or the sun, they believe it contains all of humanity's wishes and desires in the branches of a poplar tree. The story goes that a dragon named Adakar eats the sun, or the egg, and then the cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. We're finding that many of the top Christian artists out there are also pushing this narrative of all are one. You may remember the 777 event. The event was scheduled for 7/16/16, or 777. It took place in front of the Washington Monument, which is also Osiris's penis, in front of a massive reflecting pool, as above, so below. And there was other symbolism throughout the event as well. Just a few days ago, they had the 2019 World Peace Summit. This was the 5th anniversary of the WARP Summit. I have to love the acronym WARP. It truly is warped. They want to legislate peace by implementing sustainable development. Pope Francis joins Lecrae Hillsong at historic 1 million strong Together 2016 DC event. This whole event was centered around the idea of evangelical Christianity uniting with Catholicism. It's also just another example of how much closer we're getting to all of the religions coming together. Here's a few more recent stories of interest. Robot priests more acceptable to Protestants than Catholics. They are seriously considering creating artificially intelligent priests. And this is from September 19th, 2019. Just a few days ago. Pope Francis hosts first meeting of Higher Committee of Human Fraternity. August 22nd, 2019, just a few weeks ago. International Interfaith Gathering, we must work together or we will all fail. August 23rd, 2019, work together or fail. Muslim woman chosen as leader at International Interfaith Gathering. And lastly, I think it's really important to cover the alien angle on all of this. Those of you who followed my channel for years know I talk a lot about the alien deception. Specifically, I've shown you over the last few years how more and more we're being programmed with this idea of visitors from outer space. Remember this story from just a few years back? Pope Francis, the church would baptize aliens. Now we have this story here, which not only went nationwide, this went worldwide. Everybody's been talking about the raid on Area 51. But what this story is really showing us and really telling us is that people are ready for disclosure. People are ready for contact. I personally believe that however this plays out, it will be a massive deception and millions of people worldwide are going to fall for it. And now we have this story here from just a few days ago. Now folks, as far as I'm concerned, this right here is soft disclosure. For the first time ever, we have the government admitting that there's these unidentified flying objects that are real. No matter if we believe the official government story or not, this is out there now. They're now telling the public in so many words that these things are real, that they actually exist. So we see this narrative playing out. And that concludes what I wanted to show you in the video. All of this is very real. Many of us have been following this narrative for several years. And look how far it's come now. Look how close we are. The only figure that doesn't fit in to a one-world religion is Jesus Christ. That's why for years I've been saying that it's a dividing taking place. I'm seeing the sheep, I'm seeing the goats, the wheat and the tares. It's decision time. So on that note, I want to thank you once again for watching my video. I hope you're all taking care out there, and I'll talk to you real soon.